So then you look at all of the other functions around that, let's say finance, for example. There's plenty of now brilliant partners you can bring on board, but you actually don't need a finance person internally at all, probably right through to maybe towards Series B. You might then maybe bring in a VP of finance, but you can still use an outsourced partner.
This is why you should watch and listen to Season 2 of Critical Moments to understand what is changing in the age of AI and how is go-to-market evolving in 2026 and beyond. Paul, thank you so much for joining today. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, very good. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Can you give the audience a quick intro to yourself, your background, and your journey over the last few years?
Yeah, sure. So 25 years of basically building companies, mainly as a founder. I did a couple of stints in an exec role, and both in roles as CEO and CRO. I've always obviously been on the sort of commercial and go-to-market side of the house. The last 15 years has been focused on working in venture-backed tech, and my scorecard over the years is 3 successes and 2 failures.
Okay, nice. So that's 4 times founder or 5 times founder?
3 or 4 times founder, 3 times founder and joined 2 companies as an exec.
Nice. So I assume lots of learnings that we're going to talk through today on those wins and those losses. And then more recently, operating advisor, entrepreneur in residence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so now I've got a sort of really kind of interesting, I guess, portfolio approach now. I've hung up my boots in terms of building companies, and fully respect and admire anyone that's doing it, but I'm definitely done. And really, I guess fundamentally the sort of the theme that's running through everything that I do now is really supporting founders as they scale, quickly, both within their countries and internationally. And I do that in a number of ways. So I've got a little coaching practice. So I have about 20 CEOs that I coach at various different sort of stages, from seed right through to Series C. I'm an operating advisor for Bessemer Venture Partners in Silicon Valley, and I support when some of the earlier stage companies need some support, because really, I guess I'm a sort of 0 to 30 million kind of expert, so to speak. And so I joined the operating advisory team at Bessemer. They realized they didn't have that many people that were early stage specialists. So what happens there is I get a call when an early stage company's typically got a question around go-to-market. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at Episode 1, which is a tier 1, brilliant tier 1 seed fund in London. And I've set up my own sort of deal by deal fund as well, called In This Together. And we invest in European tech companies at seed and Series A that have secured a tier 1 venture capital lead investor. And the US is a big part of their future plans. And what makes the fund a bit unique is that predominantly our investors are US angels and family offices. And so we're able to put, highly networked US capital onto the cap tables, essentially, at seed and Series A companies in Europe. So when they go to America, they've got this network that they can tap into.
Wow. And that sounds incredibly exciting. What is like 2 or 3 of the investments that you've made through In This Together? If you can disclose it, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, they're on the website, so
Nice.
you can have a check, which is inthistogether.vc. We've done 4 investments. The first one was into a business called Stelia, which was actually backed by Episode 1. That's been a really great investment already. We invested at 15 million post, and that's already up at 225.
Wow.
Well, 9 months later, actually, we invested in that in June last year, so it's gone up by 15x, which is pretty good. We have invested in they're in the sort of AI infrastructure space.
Okay.
And the second investment was into a company called Deep Sea, which is in the AI radiology space. Again, more infrastructure. So they basically it's a layer that a hospital can buy, essentially, and it's like an app store model, basically. So you put the platform into the hospital, and then you can sort of turn on radiology apps very quickly. What would take 2 years of procurement can takes basically an hour now to test. And then the third investment is into a business called Cloud NC. That's backed by Lockheed Martin, Autodesk.
AI as
and
well, or
AI as well.
there you go, yeah.
Yep. And that's really interesting. It's like Cursor, but for precision manufacturing machines. So most of the world is basically built using parts created in using what's called CNC machines. But you have to actually program these machines for every single part. And they've created an AI. It took them 9 years to create an AI that can do the programming. It's super complex.
Wow.
That programs these machines. And basically a part that used to take 5 weeks can now take 2 days.
Nice. Wow, it sounds awesome. And like from your view, are you seeing like major differences in, let's just talk about like AI adoption very quickly across Europe and North America? Like, are you seeing anything from the deal flow that you have access to? Like, how is the European businesses doing versus American? Is there anything there that's worth mentioning?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I sort of want to sound the alarm a little bit on what I'm seeing. You know, obviously I've got some really
Should we
interesting.
cue an alarm?
If we can. Okay, cool. I'm seeing this incredible energy in Silicon Valley. You know, about how AI is being adopted, not just within the products themselves, but also operationally within the companies. And you know, obviously, I've got a particular interest around go to market, and I'm seeing, you know, really like very rapid experimentation, adoption, trying tools, building agentic workflows internally. And I'll come on to some of the specific examples maybe in a bit. It's incredible. And then Europe feels like they're kind of, apart from a few bright spots and a few interesting companies that you know, that I'm coaching as well. I think we're asleep at the wheel, basically.
And that's pretty worrying, right? Because the speed at which things are moving and innovating, like, what are maybe 2 or 3 of the things that you're seeing some of the more progressive businesses doing well that others aren't?
I think that so one of the things, one of the companies that I work very closely with is very, very rapidly building like AI agents to do work to basically speed up workflows or take on, you know, the you know, manual work or human work that is quite repetitive, basically. So they're really thinking through all the different workflows. And I'll give you one example. So they sign, for some reason, a lot of NDAs. So they now have an agent that they've spun up that basically analyzes the NDAs as they come in. And if it's ready to sign, then the COO will sign it and jobs are good. And I'll be very specific because I think a lot of people are a little bit confused about where to start. It just seems overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there's a brilliant tool called N8N. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think they're about to do a massive round, actually. I think they're a German company.
Yep.
They're like a Zapier, but for AI. So how they're building these agentic tools or suites of agents is they're using N8N and they're hooking up with the right LLM for the job, because that's part of the trick, is knowing which LLM to actually like hook into.
Yeah.
And that's obviously dependent on what the workflow is that you're trying to kind of create, and that's it. And so what I'd encourage people to do is just start and try. So he's built this this legal agent. Another thing that he built, and this took him in 1 hour, right, is he created a sales call analysis workflow. And it basically, and I could see that the N8 sort of canvas, if you like, and he sucks in all the Fireflies calls from the sales team. He then takes all that, sends it to O3, so like OpenAI's O3, because that's a reasoning model. It's really interesting. He said the prompt begins with, "You're the world's best sales trainer."
Yeah.
And then he's explained to the LLM like what a really good call is for them, It's then analyzed the calls, scores the calls, and then it outputs. Then he's got an agent that decides if the call's a CS call or a sales call. If it's a CS call, it routes it to a different output. If it's a sales call, routes it to a different output, and it scores all these calls. And it was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And he goes, yeah, next week I'm just going to create another set of agents that's going to then create a personalized training program based on where the reps are getting the calls wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my goodness.
I know.
And he's doing it in hours.
I know.
And he runs a 130 person company.
Crazy. Yeah. I think I had one founder I was working with, and he'd done similar with his own medic scoring. He said previously he used to have to wait, a few days for feedback from whether he had like a sales coach, whatever. But now he's just got this machine telling him like, this is what you did well, this is what you need to improve on. And he's like constantly iterating. And I just thought it was like so good to hear about like very tangible and practical application of AI in something that makes a huge difference on your close rate and your ability to progress deals. Yes, that's great. And I think like the other bit that I've definitely heard, and my friend works in a big bank in AI, and he was saying there's this concern around, not necessarily in the bank, but in general around the anti-AI team, and there's team members that are purposely slowing down AI adoption and implementation because of concerns of the impact on jobs. And we're obviously going to cover a few things around resource in a moment. But I think what I'd love to understand is, from all that experience that you've had, you're doing a lot of CEO coaching. What is it that your like playbook is? What is it that you default to? And do you feel that your playbook from the last 10 years is still relevant today when you've got this disruption with AI coming through almost everything?
It's a great question. I mean, I think my fundamental like philosophy with coaching or mentoring, whatever you want to call it, because I have sort of been there and done it, and I've built commercial teams and all that kind of stuff. I never sort of prescribe what the answer should be, and I'm really careful to do that. So I really want to understand what is the specific situation and what's the context of the situation, and then just through conversation and my experience to sort of arrive at what I think is probably the right course of action. But it's through a conversation, right? And I do have playbooks, but I do think they are all now. Well, some of them I think are becoming obsolete. I mean, I'll give you one example, and this is not really my playbook, but it's accepted management theory that we can only manage 7 people. Now, I wonder if that's true. If we roll forward 2 or 3 years, if that actually is true anymore, because with all of the efficiencies that we can get through AI, maybe we can actually manage 15 people. Or maybe we can manage 2 people now, because the rest of the time we're managing, a whole suite of agents who are managing other agents. And so who knows now what that sort of management playbook is for the number of people you can manage. And that's just one very specific and small example of hundreds and thousands of management principles that we've grown accustomed to.
Yeah, totally. The one that we did speak about is what you call the 10 commandments of
US expansion.
Yeah. Tell everybody what that actually is and where that was born from.
So in the sort of 15 years that I worked in venture-backed tech, all like the 3 companies that I was meaningfully involved in, all expanded to the US. And interestingly, they all expanded to the US in slightly different ways. The first one was back in 2012. There wasn't really much of an ecosystem in venture, really at all. I mean, it's dramatically changed in the last 15 years. We could, for love nor money, we could not raise here at all. And we, it was the classic thing. We were, a year old, and VCs, I say that in inverted commas, were asking us, if we were EBITDA positive and all that kind of mad stuff. And I think, am I going mad? Because I don't think that's what you should be asking me. So we ended up raising from Greycroft in New York, and we had to move there. So I lived in New York for a while. And that was a business called Seros, which got to about 70 or 80 million of ARR, and we sold half of it to a PE firm about 4 or 5 years ago. Pretty successful exit. So that was one route. The other companies, we didn't have to make the move, We set up a subsidiary, but the top co was a UK company. So I've done US expansion multiple times in multiple different ways, and then over the years, I've sort of landed on these sort of 10 principles or 10 commandments or whatever you want to call it, which are the really critical things that you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about US expansion. And I think they're pretty relevant to any kind of like international expansion.
Nice. And will the audience be able to get access to this? Or yeah, amazing. Okay, great. So we'll make it shareable after this. Should we talk through some of them? Because I do actually have it to hand, because I think there's a number that are really, really interesting for this. So I guess whether this is, like, do you think this is exclusively for US expansion, or are these principles and this framework applicable?
I think pretty much for all types of international expansion. Yeah.
Nice. So the first one, which is interesting, is know why you're expanding to another market. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, and maybe the US, this is slightly more of a specific US one, but not exclusively. If you're thinking about the US market, right? You're a European company, and you want to just get some traction in the US. You're thinking about getting to 10 million in ARR, and you want to then possibly sell it to a PE firm at that stage. But you want to show some revenue traction and maybe get 1 million, 10% of your revenue as US revenue. You don't really, like, in that scenario, you may not even need boots on the ground there, right, to do that. And you certainly, as a founder, don't need to think about like moving there, right? So, however, if winning a market as important as the US is critical to your plans, you're going for category dominance, let's say, then that changes everything. That changes how you think about the capital you're going to need. Like, do you go there as a CEO? Loads of other questions. And so you really have to think about like why you're doing it, and that dictates completely the strategy that you then adopt, basically.
How do you rationalize that when you've got like Lovable that's got 12 employees that have been able to dominate the market, like in this new world? I think that's like in less than a year. What's the connection there with that type of hyper AI growth, and how they've been able to dominate the market without maybe putting the traditional headcount that you would expect across the market? Is that just an outlier when you put your VC hat on when you look at it?
We'll see if it becomes an outlier. I mean, I think those companies like Lovable, Cursor, I mean, that's a classic, like, that's a classic product-led growth motion, right? And so, yeah, if you have a product that's incredibly viral that can be just picked up and used by employees, basically, which is what's happening, you can get that electric growth. I think as well, it's not just the PLG motion that they have. It's that the impact on efficiency is so big. It's like a 10x improvement, maybe more. It just caught fire. I wonder if you're more of a mid-market to enterprise product. I don't know if it's going to work in quite the same way. There's going to be some that lend itself to PLG and some that don't, even in a sort of AI context. So I think what will tend to happen with all of those companies is they will have to start employing, traditional, sales teams as they move kind of like up market, basically.
Nice. One of the 10 commandments is, and you mentioned that, like, if you're going for, say, 1 million in revenue growth, or it's quite tactical, that you don't even need to move. And one that you talk about is about finding the right partners. Can you tell us more about that, and what your experience is more generally with partners and expansion, and what advantages or disadvantages that gives?
Yeah. Well, I can talk about it in the context of expanding internationally, but I can just also talk about it in the context of going from, I think, sort of seed to even Series B. And so one of the things that I'm talking to founders a lot about, CEOs about, is like how they're allocating time, right? How they're allocating their own time. And one of my core sort of like sort of topics that I discuss with them, or sort of ways of thinking, is how do we go from A to B with the least risk, but as fast as humanly possible, right? Because venture's all about speed and fast growth, and that's even more important in this kind of AI world as well. And so I always look at like, hiring is really risky. It's one of arguably it could be like one of the riskiest things that you do, right? Because if you hire badly, or particularly senior people, it can be devastating for the company. So I'm always I'm always advising startups to think about like, what's the most important thing that you as a founder have to do, that only you as a founder can do. And like, really, that's product and customers. Like, you have to be, you can't let go of that.
Yeah.
Right? You have to absolutely own that. And the more time you can be on that, I think the more successful you're probably going to be. So then you look at all of the other functions around that, and you're thinking, okay, finance, let's say finance, for example, there's plenty of now brilliant partners you can bring on board where you actually don't need a finance person internally at all, probably right through to like maybe towards Series B. You might then maybe bring in a VP of finance, but you can still use an outsourced partner. I think there's the same with the people function. You get to about 15, 20 people, you then need some HR, you need a people manager, right? Now, it's risky to go and hire that person because they might not work out. It might take you months to find them. You haven't got that time, but you could work with a partner, and there's a whole bunch that, there's one particularly that I know that's fantastic, and they just come in, they give you exactly the right resource that you need, and you scale with them.
Yeah.
And it's just done, right? And they'll just make sure all the things that are in place. Clearly, marketing is another area. There's a lot of a lot of work that needs to get done in marketing. And you might have some skills in house, but you don't need much, right? And the rest you can use a partner. And obviously, Orbital X is a fantastic example of that. So yeah, I'm all for using partners to scale really, really fast. It's lower risk. And then as you mature, as you mature as a company, and you're raising more and more capital down the line, you can then start to bring some of those in-house, or elements of it in-house as you scale. And I think, again, going back to AI, even more so, right? So I was talking to a CEO today. He was like, I've got 7 CSMs. I think I've got too many. What do I do? And I was like, well, I mean, I said, look, you're growing really, really fast, right? So you could just put a cap now. In fact, I think every company really should think super carefully before they hire anyone right now, and really test yourself and say, can this be done in a different way with all of the technologies that we have available right now? And I think it's like, who knows what headcount we're going to need in 12 months? Things are moving so fast.
I know.
So I am sort of recommending, stay nimble. It's like, whatever you do, don't burden yourself with loads of people right now. Stay super nimble. Try and solve things through maybe an agentic workflow solution, or tools that are out there in the market. But stay really, really nimble, because it's horrible. Overhiring is horrible if you have to then start letting people go. It hits culture. It's like it's not nice for the individual, the company. It's just awful.
I think that's we talk a lot about resource risk, and I think even if you think about how quickly things are changing almost on a weekly basis. I know you and I spoke a moment ago about almost every day something new is coming out.
It's wild.
And I think that point there about culture is so important, that it is so destructive when team is cut, because the 3 CSMs that you keep are probably then sat there going, is it me next? Whereas if you can, as you say, utilize the technology, try and be nimble, I think it is such a powerful message in that journey.
Yeah. I mean, I literally said to him, obviously all these companies and people will remain nameless, but I said, why don't you just say to the team, I said, look, we've got a little bit too many. Or maybe start this conversation with the manager of the team. So maybe we've got a little too many, but I tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't we just say to the team, right, we've got a little bit of extra bandwidth right now. Why don't we just pile in and learn about AI and become AI ninjas, right? And think about, okay, well, we're going to have another, X hundred clients in the next 2 years. Why don't we think about how we can service those customers without adding a single person of headcount to this team? That's what you should do. That's cool. That's really great. You're investing in the team. They're gonna equip themselves with incredible knowledge. They'll become more valuable in the marketplace, having done so, and you're going to end up with a super efficient team.
Yeah, love it. What's the predictions over the next 12 months? Like, if you're trying to grasp the speed of, let's specifically talk about AI and go to market, what would be some of your thoughts on the next 12 months? What's likely going to unfold?
So I think one of the really interesting areas for me, and I'm actually working on this with one of my coaching clients, actually one of the investee companies, is I think one of the most powerful use cases for AI in lead generation is, and I think avatars are gonna happen better than just an audio, is inbound lead qualification. Now, inbound lead qualification has always been like basically an impossible like problem to solve.
Yeah.
Because basically we've all seen the graphs. Lead comes in, after 1 minute, it's basically dead. And you're like, oh my God, it's really stressful as a revenue leader. It's like, how do I solve that? And we're like, okay, we'll have to hire like hundreds of people and they have to work 24/7. So what do I do there? I build a massive offshore team. Like it's a horrible thing as a revenue leader. And that fundamentally creates so much problems because you've got your marketing team. It's the classic thing of like, marketing team says sales team's not responding to the really good leads and all this horrible, it creates so much pain. But the user experience of going, I'm going to hit a website, and also for the buyer, it's horrible because you know that you fill in the form and you go click and you think, I don't think anyone's going to get back to me, and no one ever does. So it's a really shitty experience. So, and I've seen some really good examples of this, much better. You hit the website and you're like, yeah, I just want to chat to someone, talk immediately to the avatar. It's a human-like experience. It feels like you're actually talking to someone. And I've gone through the experience and it was really good. And I was being qualified in or qualified out. And if I went through the qualification and it worked, I then literally get the meeting with the AE set up like by the AI avatar. Done. What an experience.
Amazing.
So like every single person coming in gets instant qualification. Because I think buyers want to either get qualified in or out as well, right? I've got a problem. I think you might be able to solve it.
Totally.
If you can't, great. And then I can just move on.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing, like, to tie into that is that I think today 80% of the buyer journey is actually done before they even decide to make themselves identify to you. 2-3 years ago, it was completely different. They like being guided by the SDR or the AE. So to that point, I think it's absolutely prime for disruption. I know you and I spoke about it about a year ago.
Yeah.
There was one that you had pointed out.
Yeah, OneMind.
That was it.
I don't know if that's I think they're doing something, but there are now other solutions popping up. But here's the cool thing, because this company I'm working with, they're selling in 30 languages. So now what you can do, you can create the avatar in 30 languages. So it can literally qualify in all those languages, and you can spin it up super fast. That's like, wow.
Love it.
The other amazing, I think, use case is solutions engineers or pre-sales engineers, right? Really hard role to hire for. And I've been in this situation before. You're like, oh my gosh, the product's quite technical. We're going to need to get some like technical sales help. And you're like, oh my goodness. And I'm going to have to hire for that person. It's going to take them 3 months to like really get deep product knowledge before they're going to be effective. That's in 6 months' time. I've got the problem today. It's that horrible sick feeling. And it's like, I don't need one. I need like 5 because I'm growing so fast. But here's again where an avatar is perfect. You're on a Zoom call and, the AE's there and you just bring in the avatar and, she or he, whatever kind of avatar you want, joins you on your Zoom and they're the product expert.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely brilliant. Now, you obviously have to train them still. But what an amazing use case. Then you have infinite pre-sales, technical support and post-sale support. Like you never have to hire another one again.
Love it.
You
just need all the pipeline to justify it, but it's...
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, you guys create the pipeline and then it gets properly qualified.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, love it. Well, Paul, it's been wonderful having you on. Where can people find you? I know you mentioned in this together and the website, but can they find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, just my name on LinkedIn. And yeah, but I mean, my email's paul@inthistogether.vc. Yeah, so just reach out. Or my coaching site's 50 to 500.biz. That's 50 the number, the word 2, and then 500.biz. So you can find a bit more about me there. Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, and great to see you.
Cool. Great to see you too. Thanks for inviting me on.